What's up guys? My name is Shaelyn and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Actually, I don't know if I hit 100 subscribers yet because I'm pre-filming this video, but editor Shay, I guess I can insert it right here if I hit it yet or not before I upload this video. But if you guys listened to the end of my birthday video last week, then you would know that I had a little surprise that I said at the end, saying that I was going to upload this video today, which is October 29th, World Stroke Day. So happy World Stroke Day, everybody. Be aware of the signs of stroke. I'm going to list them right here so that you know them and are aware of them, because I'll tell you something. When I had a stroke, I had no idea what even a stroke was, to be honest. I basically learned as I was experiencing what a stroke was, so there's that. But yeah, surprise, today is my stroke story video. I did decide already that I'm going to do a part 2 of this video where I talk about like my in-hospital experience and things like that. So this video is just going to be the night that I had my stroke. I decided that it should be its own video in itself and that it would be a great video to share on World Stroke Day. So yeah, that's what I'm doing today. Now, before I get into the video, I will say that I've heard this story be told by my mom to new people that didn't really know about what happened to me countless times at this point. Within the first couple years following my stroke, I kind of became numb to the story and kind of just like, honestly, I think that I memorized it at some point because my mom is so good at telling stories. She's a hairdresser, so she talks a lot to her clients every single day. So she's a great storyteller. But yeah, so basically I had the story memorized for the most part. I recently read through it because for lawyer reasons, we had to actually have like a write-up of every detail of what happened that night. So I have that, and I read through it the other day and it got me a little bit emotional, I'm not gonna lie. So I also don't have Kleenex right now, so I have some toilet paper just in case, because I can already feel myself getting a little bit emotional even just thinking about it. So I guess we're gonna be in for a wild ride with this story. But obviously, like I just said, I have like a whole write-up of everything that happened that night. So I will be reading off of this document just so that I don't miss anything for the most part, but also because I was having a stroke that night. Obviously, I'm not going to remember every single detail. And since it's been a little over 6 years now, obviously my memory is not going to be the best, especially with the brain damage that occurred from my stroke. So yeah. Also, I do want to preface that when I do read off of this document, the story is written in the perspective of my mother. It's going to be sounding like it's from like a third person perspective. So just so that it's not confusing, I'm gonna read like a portion of it and then explain how I was feeling and like what I remember from that portion of the story. All right. Let's just jump right in and get started because I don't want to drag this on anymore. And just like I promised you guys, I am going to be, how should I say this? Exposing the awful doctor that I had to experience this night that honestly could have been doing her job so much better than she did that night. And my whole family is extremely furious with her, so I have no shame saying her name in this story. So if a name is said, then there's a reason that the name is being said. Just putting that out there right now. On October 5th at approximately 11:09 p.m., Shaelyn's boyfriend called me, my mom, concerned about Shaelyn, explaining that he thought she had a concussion. I arrived around 11:20 p.m. and noticed something was very wrong. Okay. I'm going to start from what I remember, like before my now ex-boyfriend called my mom. So that night I was over at my ex-boyfriend's house and I was in university, he was in college. We were studying for midterms because it was midterm season. We were both studying together in his living room. I'm not going to give any specific details, but I caught him talking to another girl that I had previously told him that I didn't want him to talk to for reasons that I don't need to say in this video. But anyway, when I caught him trying to lie about talking to her, this was like a third occurrence type deal. I had already forgiven him for like cheating tendencies. This was the third time. So, and my mom always told me that it's okay to give people chances, but the third time is the last straw. So anyway, at that time I had decided to break up with him, and I proceeded to try to leave his house and go home, because at that time I was pretty much done studying for the night anyway, so I was going to be going home pretty shortly regardless. But it was time for me to go home. We broke up. We were fighting pretty aggressively, like verbally, not physically or anything. He was obviously, well, we were both pretty upset at that moment. Obviously, we were entering a relationship that was going on a year long. So when I was trying to leave, he had followed me out to my car, and wouldn't let me shut my car door. So he was pleading to me to try and get back together, or to come back inside and talk about it with my driver door open. So he was talking to me from my left side, and I was doing whatever I was doing, yelling at him or whatever you do when you're breaking up. And so I'll read the next part. It says, Shaelyn's boyfriend had told me that the two were in a fight, and Shaelyn had an emotional breakdown and hit her head on the steering wheel. With the start of university, she was on edge and stressed out. So that is true. I became extremely emotional because he started walking away out of anger, and although that's what I wanted him to do because I wanted to go home, it hit me in that moment that we were breaking up. And obviously, like, he was my boyfriend at that time, so it was just like a lot of emotions, a lot of hurt, a lot of sadness going through me. So out of frustration, I hit my head off of my steering wheel in front of me, which wasn't a great thing, but it is what it is. Like I've said in other videos, I used to be kind of an aggressive person with my own body. I wasn't very careful with my body, and I didn't realize how fragile the body is. So that was something that I did. So when he noticed that I was kind of flipping out in my car, he came back to my car. I'm not sure why. I don't honestly remember anything that he was saying at all. I don't remember anything I was saying, to be honest. This was 6 years ago, so I'm not gonna remember those kind of details. But he had come back to the left side of my car. I don't know what he was saying, but regardless, he saw me do that. And after that had happened, I was kind of mucusy in my nose, because I was bawling my eyes out, and when I cry, I get a runny nose. So I had taken a big like sniff inwards, and when I did that, I felt a pop, that's the only way I can describe it. It was like a pop that went off in like the right temple. It felt like the right side of my head. I heard it in my ear. And it was like immediately, like when I heard that, I felt like, oh my God, something is seriously wrong with me. Like, I think I just hurt myself by sniffing my nose. It sounds really weird, but you know things about your body. When things happen, you kind of just have like a gut instinct, and you just know that something is bad or something's off or whatever it might be. So anyway, when I heard that pop, I don't remember hearing or being aware of anything around me. I remember, I can visualize this exact moment actually, because I remember I started staring like through my steering wheel, like at the road. One of the street lights were shining on the road, and I remember my eyes kind of fixed on that one spot that the light was shining. And I remember I was just staring because I think I was in shock more than anything about what just happened to my head. I wasn't sure what happened, but I went into like a stare or like a trance, if you will. And next thing I know, and this is from what my ex has told me happened, I started falling out of my car on the left side, and he had caught me, like he was holding me with 2 arms. He caught me and he started running me into his house. And these are some kind of silly details, but I remember when he was running me into his house, we were going through the garage, and he had asked me, he was like, do you think you can stand up? I'm going to stand you up so I can get the door. And I was like, yeah, no problem, I can stand up, that's fine. Oh, I'm laughing because I don't know why he asked me that when I had literally just like started falling out of my car. But and I don't know why I thought that I could stand up. I guess I just didn't really think that I was affected. I was still like kind of in a weird mindset, I guess. But anyway, he stood me up on my feet and he was getting the door. He was trying to move quickly because I remember he like lunged forward to get the door, and then he was gonna like grab me and pick me up and bring me back in. And all I remember is looking at him like this. And I started falling to my left side again, and I was just falling. So I was just accepting that I was going to smash my head off of the concrete in the garage at this point. I was just, I was going down. And he, by some grace of God, caught me. I don't know how close I was to the ground, but he caught me and I was up in his arms again. And he was running me down because his bedroom was in the lower floor. He ran me down to his room and he put me on his bed to lay down. And this whole time I was thinking, oh my God, I felt like I was going to vomit, but I was trying my hardest to hold it in because I didn't want to throw up on him. I was gonna feel really bad if I threw up on him. So I was holding it in, and then he put me down on his bed, and immediately I was laying on my back and I was like, I'm gonna throw up. That's literally, I think, how I said it. I can just like hear it in my head. That's how I said it. I was like, I'm gonna throw up. And so he grabbed me by my ankles and slid me off of his bed, and grabbed like this little like tiny trash can. Oh my God, my ear just went deaf. Grabbed like a little trash can that was in his room, and he put it between my legs, and I could not keep myself sitting up at all. I was like flopping to one side. I didn't know what was going on at this point, but I couldn't sit up straight, and I was like flopping all over. I was actively throwing up into his trash can, but I couldn't keep myself up. I just lost all control of my body, and I didn't know how to sit up anymore. So he had told me, he said, I'm gonna call your mom. I think something's wrong with you. And I was like, no, don't call my mom. And I didn't want him to call my mom because I was scared that she was going to be mad that I hurt myself or like whatever was going on. I didn't want her to be mad at me. So I said, don't call my mom. He called her anyway, obviously, because what was he gonna do? Like, so he called my mom. Next thing I know, my mom showed up. Okay, so I guess I already explained this, but I'll just continue reading. So it says, Shaelyn's boyfriend carried her into his house where she began to vomit. Shaelyn was vomiting and could not hold herself up. I could tell it was something more than a concussion, and at around 11:26 p.m., I called 911. So obviously at this point, my mom showed up. Honestly, I don't remember anything like significant about my mom being there. I remember being really scared that she was gonna be mad at me. I didn't know what was wrong with me, so I was just like kind of going through the motions, vomiting and being like sick as hell basically. The ambulance arrived shortly after. We told them what had happened and they sluggishly checked her vitals and continued on. They were not particularly kind and were not taking Shaelyn seriously. They repeatedly asked her about doing drugs, seemingly to have already made an opinion that drugs and or alcohol were involved. So, unfortunately, the paramedics that arrived on scene, they didn't seem like they wanted to deal with me. I think they probably just thought, oh, this is a young girl, she's probably just on drugs or something. Which obviously, if you knew me, you would know that that's not me. I didn't do drugs, especially because like I was studying. Regardless, I will say more about those paramedics. Yeah, let's continue on. She was so limp that they could barely get her into a chair and had to support her neck because she couldn't hold her head up. So they tried to get me in the chair, and my body was just like completely like ragdoll limp. Like I could not hold myself up, even my neck, like it was just like flopping. I couldn't hold anything up in my body for the life of me. There was nothing I could give in support to the paramedics like moving my body into a chair. So they had to hold my head up. And I remember at this moment, this is when it like all became very real to me, that what had happened to me was very serious. And so I remember looking at my mom and asking her, I said, oh, I think because I knew what an aneurysm was, well, what I thought an aneurysm was, I'm not 100% sure even now. So when I heard that pop, that was the only conclusion that I could come up with in my head. So I had looked at my mom and I asked her, I said, Mommy, did I have an aneurysm? Obviously, like, I was dead serious at this time. I was confused. I was scared for my life. I was just, because I wasn't paying attention entirely to what the paramedics were saying, and I thought that they would know what had happened to me, and I thought that maybe they would have been taking this seriously, so that's why I asked my mom that. Maybe she could have told me what was going on and what I was going to the hospital to get help for. I think she said something along the lines of like, I don't know, honey, we're gonna figure it out, or something like that. I'm pretty sure those might have been her exact words, actually. Anyway, it says, once she was in the ambulance, they tried to give her an IV in her left arm. She was resisting due to her fear of needles. At that point, her right arm began to flare and twitch uncontrollably, which was horrifying to see. So at this point, this was right before I got into the ambulance. I remember they were trying to get me into the ambulance. And this started happening. I'm not sure why she said this happened when they were trying to put an IV in my arm, but I will address the IV thing first. I have my whole life had like a massive fear of needles. I'm much better now, being that I've had a lot of doctor's appointments and medical appointments. I've had more IVs than I can count at this point in my life. But at that time, probably my worst fear. So when they were trying to get the IV in my left arm, I remember I was pulling it, which obviously is not a good thing. I should not have been doing that, but you know, when you have a fear of something, it was scary. So I was not letting them put the IV in my arm. And this was my left arm at this point. So that is the last moment at that point that I have recollection or knowledge of me being able to move my left arm, like with functional movement, I guess. So anyway, I was pulling my arm. They eventually got my arm pinned down, and I kind of just submitted to it, and I let them put the IV in my arm. At that point, her arm began to flare and twitch uncontrollably, which was horrifying to see. This was right before I got into the ambulance. I remember my arm, I would feel like, okay, how can I explain this? It was almost like if you have ever been like cold or like nervous or scared or something, and you are like getting the chills, and like you start to feel like a big chill come on where your whole body just kind of goes, ooh. That's the only way that I can explain it. Like when you get like one big chill and your whole body just kind of like does like a big twitch. That is what I was feeling before this happened. So basically, my arm, when I would get the chill, my arm would shoot up, and I would look at it because I was like, what is my arm doing? And this was, for the most part, uncontrollable. I was kind of just like letting my body do what it felt like it needed to do because it felt like I needed to. I don't know. So my arm kind of shot up. I would look at it, and then this was without any control. My wrist, I don't know if you can even see this, but I think I was in like a laying position. I'm not 100% sure, but anyway, my arm would shoot up, like straight up like this. And I looked at it. This is my right arm that was doing it. And the wrist would start like, my wrist would like start flopping. I'm not entirely sure. I remember it being pretty aggressive, but I don't really remember too specifically what exact motion my wrist was doing. What I felt like it was doing was like doing this. That's what it felt like it was doing. And she also added that I had urinated myself, which unfortunately is true because, and this is the only time I'm going to say this, but I remember when they took me into the ambulance, I had to go to the bathroom so badly. I had asked one of the paramedics, I said, I have to go to the bathroom really badly, can I go to the bathroom? I didn't realize how awful and how much of a chore it was to get me into the ambulance at that time, so I thought that they would just let me go back into the house and go to the bathroom. I don't know, I wasn't really completely aware of the circumstances, but I thought that they would just let me go to the bathroom. So I asked them, they said, no, we're going to the hospital. So I looked at my mom and my sister and I was like, cause they were like right outside the ambulance doors. And I was like, I told my sister, I think I was like, I really have to pee. And she looked at me and she was like, Shay, just pee. And I was like, in my pants? And she was like, yeah, pee in your pants right now. And so I did, because I was like, I don't know what else to do. I have to go to the bathroom really bad and they won't let me. So I just peed my pants and that was it. And so this is something that isn't documented. I remember this very vividly. This is when I realized that the paramedics were not being nice to me and that they had already formed like an opinion of me. So I didn't know, I thought my phone had been in my pocket that whole time. So I remember when I was in the ambulance, it was very dark in there, but I could hear the sirens of the ambulance going off because they were rushing me to the hospital, I think. And this was my first experience in an ambulance, obviously, so I was thinking to myself, I wasn't saying this or anything, but I was wanting to grab my phone and take a video so that I could put it on my Snapchat story. This was back when Snapchat was like really huge and like everybody posted everything on their story. So yeah, that was something that as a 17-year-old girl I wanted to do. So obviously I didn't. I don't think I tried too hard. I think I was just thinking to myself that I wanted to do this. But then shortly after, I don't know what happened or what provoked this paramedic to say this, but this female paramedic looked at me and she said very sarcastically in this exact tone, she looked down at me and she was like, you peed your pants, what are you, like 5 years old? And you know what? I did not give a damn. I was like, this lady, none of these people are taking me seriously. There's something seriously wrong with me. I don't know what provoked them to form such an opinion of me or why they're treating me this way. I'm just a normal person. I just need some help, and what their job is to help me. So I'm really not sure why they're not being nice to me and trying to help me with what I need help with. So I looked at her after she told me that and I was like, actually I'm 2. Just to kind of like ruffle her feathers a little bit, because I was like, this bitch, like, what did I do to her that made her have to make such a snarky comment to me? Why did she look at me and ask me if I was 5 years old because I peed myself? Like, excuse me, lady, but I was having a stroke. We didn't know that yet, obviously, but like, how dare you like talk down to me like that? You're in a professional setting, you're doing your job, and I'm a patient, and you do not need to treat me that way. You do not need to verbally abuse me that way. I guess that's verbal abuse, I would say, because that's extremely unprofessional, and I was a patient and she should not have been saying something that rude to me. So anyway, I don't remember much after that other than like getting to the hospital. It says the ambulance arrived to the hospital at approximately 12:30 a.m. where she was being transferred into the emergency room. they had to remove her clothing because of the urine before they let me, my mom, in the emergency room. Shaelyn's boyfriend and myself arrived just after Shaelyn was brought in. My other daughter and her boyfriend showed up at around 12:45 a.m. At this point, I don't really remember much. I remember them stripping me down and asking me to take out like my belly button ring and my earrings and things like that. So I did, or I tried to help. I think the nurses had to do it for me for the most part because I was only using my one hand at that point, unaware that I was only using one hand, by the way, but I was. And it says, Shaelyn did not get any more attention or care until she was brought for a CAT scan at approximately 1:30 a.m. So this was a whole hour after I had already been in the emergency room. Now, I understand, especially now, my husband working in the emergency room, that other people take priority over others because other people are more sick, but especially considering the circumstances and my symptoms that I was showing, I do not think that I should have waited an hour to be brought for a CAT scan. I think that even any attention or like analysis of my symptoms should have been done within that time frame, but it wasn't. So anyway, and Dr. Charlotte Logan. Okay, I literally just finished filming this entire video and I realized that I forgot a part because it's not mentioned in the document at all. So I'm gonna FaceTime my mom and get her to explain this part because I don't really remember every single detail about this, but she has always been really good at telling this story. So I'm gonna FaceTime her and insert that clip right now. Hi, Mom. Oh.
Hi, honey. How's it going?
Good. How's it going with you?
Good.
Okay. I just needed a little reminder of the night of my stroke. I just finished filming my video and I forgot a part because it wasn't mentioned in the document. So the last thing I have is it says, when Dr. Logan entered the room, she seemed very arrogant and did not show a moment of empathy toward Shaelyn. No signs of therapeutic care whatsoever. It appeared that she formed an opinion of Shaelyn and was not going to give her the care that she deserved. And I'm pretty sure something happened during that, like before she shined the light in my eye and whatnot.
Yeah. So you were in the hospital bed. We were just waiting for, the report on your CAT scan, and in walked Dr. Logan. She introduced herself and mentioned, nothing showed in the CAT scan as far as she was concerned, and wanted to know what brought us to the hospital. Mm-hmm. So I proceeded to describe everything that happened that brought us to the hospital at this point. And during the, me describing this, was taking a few minutes. You decided to just blurb out, "Isn't my mom so beautiful?" I guess you were in a state of mind that, you were kind of scared for your life and you were kind of thinking you may even die that night. So you were just looking at me, maybe in your opinion, the last time, and you just blurbed it out. She, the doctor, we were both kind of caught off guard because you kind of cut into our conversation, and so we both turned and looked at you in the hospital bed, and I went, "Oh, honey, oh," and then the doctor turned and looked back at me and said, "Are you Mom?" Mm-hmm. And I went, "Yeah, I'm her mom," and she kind of gave me the scan from head to toe, like as if to make a point that she was judging my physical appearance in some capacity, which threw me, but I didn't really care because I was more concerned with you and what was going on with you. So I would have reacted normally. What the heck was that look? Yeah. But because I was worried about you, I decided to omit what I just saw. And then she directly started walking towards you at that point. So she was done listening to my story about why we were there. And she went straight over to you. And you were kind of sliding kind of out of the bed a bit because your left side was numb. Yeah. And you kept kind of shifting off the bed almost. Yeah. So she kind of grabbed you to adjust you and straighten you out because it looked like she was about to do an assessment of what was going on with you. And while she started to adjust you, she made a reference, because part of the story I'd said something about a fight you had with your boyfriend. So she said, that wasn't very nice of you to try to manipulate your boyfriend. Do you think this is this isn't the first time a boy's gonna hurt your feelings? Something along the lines of that, which I completely thought was inappropriate.
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do with your physical condition. Why she had to say that, it really worried me, because I felt like she was judging you also.
Yeah.
She just looked at me in a judgment form, and then she turned to you and then made a comment to you. So I was scared at that point. I just didn't know what kind of help we were going to see from the hospital, and I was worried to death, because I believed you could be possibly not leaving that hospital. I was scared.
Yeah.
So that was really stressful, and that's how the whole night started. Was really, it was already stressful because you were obviously in some kind of bad state, and you were in really rough condition, and I didn't know what was going on. It was kind of a nightmare. It was very surreal.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's what happened when she first introduced herself.
Yeah. I was gonna get teary-eyed even just you saying that just now.
It's emotional. I feel teary right now. I'm just trying to, it was a long time ago, so I've told this story hundreds of times, so I've got a tough skin from it now, but yeah, it wasn't appropriate the way that whole scenario played out, and the way you were diagnosed, so.
Yeah,
turned out you had a friggin' stroke. No problem. Anytime you need any help, give me a ring.
Okay, I love you.
Love you. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Mwah. She asked Shaelyn what happened, but for obvious reasons, Shaelyn was unable to communicate a good answer. The only physical check that the doctor did was shine a light in her eyes, but Shaelyn could not keep her eyes open. The doctor came across very frustrated and told Shaelyn, "You're wasting my time. I have a long list of patients that will appreciate and want my help. Until you're ready to cooperate and accept my help, I won't be back." And then she headed toward the door while Shaelyn practically begged for her help and said, "I appreciate you. I want your help. I appreciate you," and the doctor left the room. So, I remember this. I remember Dr. Logan telling me to look up towards, I think, her finger or something like that, and then her proceeding to shine a pen light into my eyeballs, directly where I was looking. And obviously, if you're somebody having a stroke, I'm not gonna be able to keep my eyes open and stare at a freaking bright ass light. So, she became very frustrated because every time that she would shine the light into my eye, right directly into my, where I was looking, my eyes would roll and close. That's how my mom described my eyes motions, because it hurt my eyeballs. I literally remember this hurting my eyes so bad. And on top of all of this, while I was vomiting every 15 to 30 minutes, I had this excruciating, piercing, just the worst migraine that I had ever experienced in my entire life while this was all happening. So when the doctor was shining this freaking light in my eye, obviously this is going to be extremely painful, and I'm going to shut my eyes because it hurts. My mom and my whole family that was there and me all have formed the opinion that this doctor had, when she received report from the paramedics in the ambulance, she probably formed an opinion from them because they were very rude and accusatory that I had been on drugs or drunk or something like that, which 1000% was not the case. I was not under the influence of anything. The doctor was extremely rude right off the bat. Anyway, it was approximately an hour later, around 3 to 3:30 a.m. zone, Dr. Logan came back and said that the radiologist looked at her CAT scan and said that it was clear. She stated that Shaelyn needs to make a better effort and cooperate. And then the nurse, I guess a nurse came in with Dr. Logan proceeded to try and sit up Shaelyn, but she kept falling to the side. They were demanding her to try. When the nurse let her go, Shaelyn completely flopped to the side of the bed. Dr. Logan looked over at my mom and she said, "This is behavior. She is not allowed to leave this hospital until she sees a psychologist. I'm done here. Even if she snaps out of this in an hour and gets out of bed to leave, she cannot leave until she sees a psychiatrist." The doctor handed my mom paperwork about the psychiatrist, and then my mom wrote, "I just wanted to get help for my daughter so badly. I even apologized saying, 'I'm sorry, I know my daughter had an emotional episode tonight, but what I'm seeing is not normal and I cannot make sense of it.'" Dr. Logan responded by saying, "I'm a doctor, but I'm also a mom, and put it this way, if that was my daughter in this bed, this would not be happening." And she walked out. My mom said, "I was so upset and worried and just wanted someone to help my daughter." Sorry, this really gets my blood boiling because not only was I being mistreated, but it infuriates me to no end that somebody else, some other freaking lady that had some power over my mom, decided that she could treat my mom like that. I am extremely protective of my mom. She's like my best friend, and it just infuriates me to no end that this lady was treating her like this. And for most of it, I wasn't even coherent, and I couldn't, honestly, I don't remember most of this. So when the nurse was sitting me up on the side of the bed, I remember that she sat me on the side of the bed, and she had me held by my shoulders, I'm pretty sure. And so I was sitting on the side of the bed, and as soon as she let go of me, which I don't know what kind of assessment she was trying to prove by doing this, it certainly was not for paralysis, because that's not how you test for paralysis, by sitting somebody up on the side of the bed. That's not how you do it. Regardless though, she sat me up on the side of the bed, and I began to fall to the left, and she caught me, not nicely might I add. She very aggressively grabbed me by my shoulders and put me back up center, and she let go again. I'm pretty sure this happened like 3 times, but I fell over again, and she grabbed me again aggressively and sat me up. Then the nurse proceeded to try to sit up Shaelyn, but she kept falling to the side. They were demanding her to try, and Shaelyn would slur the words, "I'm trying." The nurse had to catch her from falling over and demanded again that she needed to try. When the nurse let go, okay, so this was the 3rd time. When the nurse let go, Shaelyn completely flopped to the side of the bed, and that's when So the 3rd time, after like they were telling me that I needed to try, assuming that I wasn't trying for whatever reason, thinking that I just wasn't there to try. Not sure why they thought that about me, but anyway, I slurred the words because at this point my speech was becoming affected. I slurred the words, "I'm trying," and she proceeded to let go of me again, and this time she did not catch me, no. I flopped and hit the bed. I remember this kind of hurt because it was completely dead weight, just completely like smacking and hitting the bed. So after that, she did not readjust me and put me back in bed whatsoever. She did not care, this nurse. I'm pretty sure like my family hurried to help me and put me back comfortably, like laying on my back in bed, so that I wasn't like hanging off the side of the bed and potentially roll off and fall, because that would not be good, obviously. So yeah, so my mom said, "I was so upset and worried, and I just wanted somebody to help my daughter." It says, Shaelyn's boyfriend and I sat there waiting for the psychiatrist and noticed Shaelyn had not been moving her leg for a while. We asked her to try and move her arm and leg and do a full smile, and she couldn't. Since it felt like no one was willing to help Shaelyn, we Googled the symptoms ourselves without any medical backgrounds of our own, realizing that Shaelyn could be having a stroke. Feeling like no one was listening to us, we didn't know what we could do. That's the part that's gonna get me. Alright. I think I'm okay. Sorry, that part just got to me because, like I said before, it's like really hard to hear that anybody was like mistreating my mom because of what kind of opinion they had of me, and that there was nothing that I could do to defend my mom because I was obviously incapable of that at that point of physically doing anything. I couldn't really speak up for her or speak up for myself even. I was just putting my hope into these healthcare professionals that they would help me, and obviously they were doing less than nothing to help me. So it's just really hard to hear that my mom and my ex had to basically diagnose me themselves using Google, because for some reason these medical professionals could not use their knowledge and eyes to frickin' see my symptoms that I'm experiencing and put two and two together. Oh, she's having a stroke. Like, I don't know. It's just honestly insane to me that this even happened. Anyway, I do remember this part very vividly, but I remember this must have been right after my mom and my ex had Googled my symptoms and realized that I probably having a stroke. But basically my mom had asked me, she was like, Shaelyn, can you do me a couple favors? And I was like, yeah, what? At this point my eyes were closed and I was just kind of like zoned out, like trying to just like not throw up basically, and kind of trying to just go through having these bright lights and having a migraine and whatever. So I was in a lot of pain, but anyway, my mom said, okay, can you move your left leg for me? And so I was laying there, and what she said happened was nothing. She said that nothing happened, and she waited like a few seconds and she was like, did you do it? And I was like, yeah, I moved my leg. Like, what do you mean? Obviously I wasn't moving it, but I was thinking that I was moving it. So next she said, okay, next can you move your left arm for me? So again, pretty much the same exact thing. I was laying there thinking that I was moving my arm, and what she said happened was absolutely nothing. I was not moving my arm at all. There was no movement. So, and she goes, okay, one last thing. I want you to give me the biggest smile that you can. Show me all across your big pearly whites. Show me your big smile, because that was something that I was always kind of known for. I had a huge smile, and my dad used to compare my smile to Julia Roberts' smile. He used to say that I looked like her because I smiled exactly like big like her. So anyway, and so I started smiling, and it was literally half of my mouth. Like, if I could cover this side of my mouth, it was like that. I don't know actually how that looks. Actually, I can insert a picture right here. I have a picture that I took in the hospital. I'll put it right here. That is what my smile essentially looked like. It was literally like, this side was completely stationary, not moving, and this side was a full-blown smile. Anyway, okay, so before I read this next part, I was having another episode of vomiting. Again, this happened every 15 to 30 minutes or so from what I've been told. I had a pail and my mom was on the bed pretty much holding me up and kind of helping me have the pail between my legs so that I can vomit into it. Anyway, between 4 o'clock and 4:30 a.m., the psychiatrist showed up and asked, how are we doing here? Which, this psychiatrist sucked that she was put into this situation, because she seemed, from what my mom said, decently nice. She was just there to kind of do her job, and she was kind of walking in very like tiptoey, like she was trying to be very gentle is what I'm trying to say. So my mom said to the psychiatrist that walked in. Not good. My daughter is supposed to see you before she can leave this hospital, but she can't lift her leg and arm and also can't fully smile. Also, her right arm is randomly flaring in the air every 15 to 30 minutes. The psychiatrist even said that it was something more and that she would let someone else know. So at that point, the psychiatrist had said something along the lines of, "This is not for me, I'm going to go get somebody else." I remember my mom said that she said something along those lines. Okay, I just wanted to mention this because I remembered this when I was talking to my mom after I was already done filming. But basically, when the psychiatrist was in the room, it wasn't until my mom said that she suspects that it might be a stroke that the psychiatrist went back to whoever and said whatever. But then all of a sudden, they started doing more tests and they started taking me more seriously, because all of a sudden my mom is like understanding what is possibly wrong with me, but nobody else that's a healthcare worker there can understand it for some reason. And this is even though they previously did a few different blood and urine tests that all came back clear. They still refused to treat me any differently or assess me properly. Nothing was done up until my mom mentioned my possible diagnosis, which ended up being my actual diagnosis. So that's great. Apparently the flailing with my wrist and my arm and whatever was still happening at that point. About another 30 minutes later, a nurse showed up to take more blood and more urine. My mom mentioned those symptoms again to the nurse, and this was the first time that my mom had saw any physical assessment done on Shaelyn's arms and legs. The doctor came back within 15 to 30 minutes and said that the neurologist would be there soon. Again, my mom pointed out the symptoms. She asked Shaelyn to lift her leg twice. Shaelyn responded by slurring and rolling her eyes because she could not keep them open. My symptoms had worsened at this point. I don't remember this whatsoever. I'm not sure if I was even awake for this. Who knows? But apparently the doctor came into the room and she was asking me to lift my arm and my leg, and I responded to her questions by, what did my mom say? Slurring and rolling back my eyes because I could not keep them open. So obviously there was something like wrong with my brain at that point, and the doctor was just like, pfft. So at that point my mom said, the doctor looked at me and replied arrogantly, "Mom, if you have any more concerns, let me know," and then walked out of the room again. So more attitude, more dismissive, doesn't care about my health or what's going on with me. It says at about 5:30 a.m., the neurologist showed up and did an assessment on Shaelyn. He was very confused about the possible head injury and types of symptoms she was having. He went to review the CAT scan again, and when he returned, he mentioned that he wasn't sure if he was looking too hard to find something, but he thinks that he might see something on the right side of the brain and wants to do an MRI. So, I mean, I don't remember anything past this point for the most part. So basically, the neurologist, when he showed up, he said that he could see something happening on the right side of my brain in the CAT scan that the radiologist had cleared at 1:30 in the morning. This was now 4 hours later after they did the CAT scan, which is an hour after I showed up to the hospital. Anyway, it says they took her for her first MRI, which was the last time I would see Dr. Logan. At around 8 o'clock to 8:30 a.m., Shaelyn went for another MRI, which took about an hour. So this was my second MRI now. I don't remember the first one. I don't really remember the second one. The MRI doors opened and they brought her back to the emergency room where the neurologist arrived shortly after. At around 9:30 a.m., the neurologist announced the diagnosis of a stroke. He informed us that since she was not treated for a stroke between the 3 to 6 hour window, the clot buster was no longer an option for her. So yeah, obviously the drug TPA, which is what they typically use for patients who are having strokes, I was no longer eligible for because that drug is only effective between a 3 to 6 hour window. I'm not entirely sure about the science or why that's the case, but Basically just gets rid of any clots that are going on in your body or your brain or whatever, which is what I had in the side of my head, which is why I was diagnosed with a stroke at that time. It says, in conversation, he said, you don't normally see a stroke with a head injury, more likely something from a previous neck injury. This triggered our memories, and we were able to inform him of a previous neck injury just 3 months earlier that Shaelyn was getting physiotherapy at a medical clinic. We asked the neurologist if he had been there during the night, would he have given Shaelyn the clot buster? And he said that he may or may not have given it to her. He would have been cautious due to the side effects of giving a clot buster to somebody with a head injury. So yeah, 3 months prior to my stroke, I had head injury from dancing in the car with my friends. Anyway, so regardless, my diagnosis had been an ischemic stroke. I'll put my little screenshot of what an ischemic stroke is. So what the neurologist had summed up was that my stroke would have been due to my neck injury. The last part of this document is kind of sad for me to read, but it says, my daughter knew that there was something wrong and basically had to beg for help. There was nothing I could do for her but to hope this particular medical professional would change her tune to help my daughter. If they had paid more attention to the urgency of these obviously alarming symptoms, instead of treating her like a child that was acting out and not cooperating, Shaelyn may not be in her current predicament. She is currently being treated at a rehabilitation center. That is the end of the document. That is my stroke story, part 1 of the night of my stroke. I was trying to stay strong that whole time so that I could get through without babbling like a emotional wreck. So I'm glad I managed to only cry once. But yeah, I have another surprise for you guys. I will be filming part 2 of this video and getting that up on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. So you're going to be getting another video, which is part 2 of this video, in 4 days. And then you're also going to be getting regularly scheduled video that Thursday. So you're going to be getting 2 videos next week. And yeah, so, and then we'll be back to the regularly scheduled programming, videos every Thursday at noon Mountain Time. So once again, thank you guys so much for watching this video. This one was my most anticipated video for me to film. I was very nervous to film it, but I'm glad to get my story out there for those who maybe don't know my story or maybe have a different story in their head about it, because I know that there were a lot of lies and rumors that went around after my stroke. Anyway, my hot chocolate is now cold, so thank you guys for that. Just kidding. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!